Larry and Andy Wachowski are quite interesting individuals. What sets them apart isn't just their transition into Lana and Lily Wachowski, although that part of their biography is also amusing. The most interesting thing about their career is that after breaking into Hollywood in the late 1990s with a huge cult hit that dominated the box office, they found themselves stuck in a string of box office failures. Even Netflix, who usually keeps underperforming shows for several seasons, canceled their Sense8 after just 2. Though they did give the directors a chance to wrap up the storyline. The third installment of The Matrix was also a failure, despite covering its advertising budget and turning a profit during its theatrical release. Such a dramatic drop in box office revenue for the third film, following the success of the second, could hardly be called a success. Many attribute the failure of The Matrix Revolutions to the short gap between the second and third films. Because the sequel left many people disappointed, the third film, released only 6 months later, bore the brunt of their dissatisfaction. If the film had been released a year or two later, the audience's anger would have likely subsided, possibly leading to higher earnings. That makes sense, considering that a similar situation occurred with the creators of the sequel and the threequel to the Back to the Future movie, who released the second and third films with only a 6-month interval. Although the second film was well received by audiences, the third one performed significantly worse. It is now believed that sequels should be released at least a year apart. Anyway, after The Matrix, the sisters' career took a downturn. At first, their producer project, V for Vendetta, failed to meet expectations, barely breaking even. Next, the expensive Speed Racer bombed at the box office, receiving harsh criticism from both critics and audiences. Then there was Cloud Atlas, whose box office failure was somewhat mitigated by positive reviews and a budget gathered from hundreds of European funds, meaning the failure didn't really affect anyone. After Cloud Atlas came the Wachowskis' most expensive film to date, Jupiter Ascending, which we'll discuss in more detail today. According to the Wachowskis, Jupiter Ascending was a blend of the Odyssey and the Wizard of Oz. These works formed the basis of a 600-page screenplay that the sisters presented to Warner Bros. President Jeff Robinov in 2011. A couple of years earlier, Robinov personally approached the Wachowskis and invited them to work together. Warner Bros. Wanted to start a new franchise, and the studio president believed the Wachowskis, who had previously made The Matrix for them, were a good choice. After receiving the Wachowskis' script for Jupiter Ascending in 2011, Robinov approved production. The only difficulty faced before filming Jupiter Ascending was selecting the lead actress. At one point, Natalie Portman was considered for the lead role, but she wasn't too keen on the script. After several unsuccessful attempts to adjust the script to her liking, the actress left the project. Portman was almost replaced by Rooney Mara, known for her role in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but Mara also encountered some problems and, after some thought, declined the role as well. Finally, Mila Kunis joined the project. Unlike Natalie Portman and Rooney Mara, Kunis was satisfied with the script. Moreover, to star in Jupiter Ascending, the actress turned down the role in the sequel to Ted, where she was replaced by Amanda Seyfried. In hindsight, her decision wasn't entirely wrong. The sequel to Ted didn't do as well at the box office as the original. However, it didn't fail either. Channing Tatum and Eddie Redmayne joined the project without hesitation. Both actors had long wanted to work with the Wachowskis, so when they received the offer, they immediately signed the necessary paperwork. The original budget for Jupiter Ascending was $130 million. Warner Bros. Covered $50 million of this amount, Village Roadshow contributed another $50 million, and Rat Pack Dune provided the remaining $30 million. Filming began in early April 2013 and concluded in August of that year. The filming process went pretty smoothly, but trouble came from where it was least expected. At the end of June 2013, Jeff Robinov, who supported the production of Jupiter and the Wachowskis, stepped down as president of Warner Bros. Many believe that it was the changes in Warner's management that ultimately led to such a dismal outcome for the sci-fi project. This doesn't mean the film would have failed, but it could have grossed more at the box office. The studio's fall test screenings revealed a serious problem. Viewers couldn't understand what was happening on the screen. The Wachowskis' film was quickly sent for reshoots to make some of the plot points clearer. The reshoots took place in January 2014 and, according to the studio, were minor. In March 2014, the studio held additional test screenings, and after receiving feedback, they decided to schedule another round of reshoots for May 2014. This time, they were more extensive and lasted for 3 weeks. It isn't clear what the studio was trying to fix with those reshoots, as there was no official statement about it. It's also unknown whether the studio conducted test screenings afterward. However, in early June 2014, Warner Bros. Moved Jupiter Ascending's premiere date from July 18, 2014 to the end of January 2015. Since the film was moved from a great summer release date to the January graveyard, the press went even harder on burying Jupiter Ascending. All news reports kept highlighting the movie's flaws and apparent issues. The film's Seventh Son and Jupiter Ascending, premiering worldwide from January to March 2015, were considered the top contenders for the biggest failure of the year. The negative atmosphere surrounding the film wasn't just caused by news of reshoots. The first footage and trailers that the studio presented back in late 2013 didn't spark any excitement among the audience. Instead, they were met with ridicule and criticism. Those involved in Jupiter's production also knew that the movie wasn't going to do well at the box office. Even before the film was released, Lana Wachowski noted in interviews that many box office failures eventually become cult classics. According to her, this was precisely what awaited Jupiter Ascending in the distant future, where it had every chance to stand alongside films like Blade Runner. Channing Tatum, who played the lead role in the film, repeatedly criticized the uncomfortable makeup in interviews, stating that it even hindered his ability to speak properly. When asked about the plot of the new film he starred in, the actor admitted that he had asked himself that question many times, but never managed to come up with an answer. According to Warner Bros., the film's postponement had nothing to do with its quality. On the contrary, it was pushed back from its summer release date to give the filmmakers more time to perfect the film. Reportedly, nearly the entire crew from The Matrix worked on the project. Furthermore, the 8-minute action sequence in Chicago took 6 months to film due to its extreme complexity. Anyway, by the time of its premiere, the film's budget reached $179 million. Starting off as just another big movie, Jupiter Ascending turned into one of the most expensive films of the year. In the American box office, the film grossed a modest $47 million. The global release brought Jupiter Ascending an additional $136 million. The reported financial losses from the Wachowskis' film vary greatly, but most analysts agree that the studios lost between $100 to $150 million on the project. It's unclear which studio suffered the most from the film, as information about profit sharing hasn't been made public. 2015, in general, turned out to be quite harsh in terms of major film failures. The list of box office bombs included Seventh Son, Jupiter Ascending, The Good Dinosaur, Tomorrowland, Fantastic Four, Pan, Point Break, and In the Heart of the Sea. Mad Max and Terminator Genisys also failed to live up to expectations, and these are just the films with budgets exceeding $100 million. On top of that, there were the $90 million The Last Witch Hunter, the $70 million Black Hat, and other smaller budget films. Jupiter Ascending received 6 Golden Raspberry Award nominations, including ones for the directors, actors, screenplay, and film itself. Eddie Redmayne was the only one to win the coveted award. However, despite its significant box office failure, many in Hollywood tried to defend the Wachowskis' film. People argued that in the age of franchises and sequels, Jupiter Ascending was like a breath of fresh air. And though the film had its issues, at least it was an attempt to do something new, instead of capitalizing on old hits. The film's directors had similar perspectives on the situation. According to them, when they were kids, sequels were almost a bad word. Theaters were full of original movies as no one wanted to take on follow-ups. Sequels also tended to fare worse at the box office compared to the originals. The situation with the fourth Matrix film was complicated. Many people were eager to see the return of the old characters, so everyone was excited when they heard about the filming. However, after the massive failure of Jupiter Ascending and the cancellation of Sense8, people were actively dismissing and disregarding the Wachowskis. With all the media noise, securing funding for a new major project was quite difficult. And here we have a typical scenario that many actors or directors who've had a string of failures find themselves in. Going back to old hits that didn't need sequels. Everyone knows what usually happens with such films upon release. Yes, people love Keanu Reeves and praise him whenever they get the chance. Besides, The Matrix was once a mind-blowing movie, but was that necessary given the context? After all, Warner Bros. Wanted to return The Matrix to the big screen for a long time, but the Wachowskis always refused to take on the sequel. But things have changed, and now Lana Wachowski is taking on the fifth Matrix, with 4 costly failures behind her. Few directors receive so many chances. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and stay tuned.